Welcome, welcome, friends. It is Friday. We made it, July the 17th. This is Hurricane Hub Live. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandages. Let's get to it. We got a little bit of something to talk about out in the Atlantic Basin. Odds slightly better for Atlantic development. Now, don't get your hopes up. Not a hole in one here, but possibilities there in the northeast parts of the Gulf that we may possibly, the chances are still low, that Bertha could form over the next 7 days. We'll get into that in a little bit, but we've got Elida already formed out in the eastern Pacific Basin. Some changes on the forecast with this, and it may soon be joined by Fausto. We've got another area of interest right on the heels of Elida that's got a high chance of developing over the next 48 hours, 80 to 90% chance. All right, here's the Atlantic Basin overall. There's not much going on. We'll start off the coast of Africa. We had this wave here that emerged as an African easterly wave 2-3 days ago, and it looked healthy when it emerged off the coast, and then it hit stable air. And now it's gone, poof, gone. It had only a 10% chance of developing, but even that is now down to zero, and it's just left with a white X sitting right over Cabo Verde, and it's just some thunderstorms, if that, at this time. Now, well off to the north and west, we head back to closer to home in the northern and northeastern portions of the Gulf. Now we've kind of skimmed off the possibility of any development off the southeast coast of the U.S., and we've got an area of convection, a swarm of thunderstorm activity pretty much, that's sitting just south and west off the coast of Tampa Bay, Florida. And that's got a chance now, upped it slightly to 30% chance over the next 7 days. We've upped the 48-hour chances to 10%. So it is not a guarantee. Certainly not written in stone, but already seeing some impacts here by some thunderstorms and some heavy rain in the portions of central and western Florida. And this may develop into something more, acquire some tropical characteristics as it sits and pretty much festers over the Gulf waters that, by the way, are very warm. There's plenty of fuel here, and modeling does take it slowly off towards the west. I'll show you the modeling here in just a second, but here's how it looks on infrared satellite imagery. I like to switch it up and show you this imagery because it tells us the temperatures of the cloud tops. Why that's important with tropical forecasting is it tells us the strength of the convection inside these storms. When you see the darker colors like the black and the white showing on up here, that's indicative of very cold cloud tops, stronger thunderstorms, taller thunderstorms here. But again, it's just a big old disorganized swirl right now, which is why the odds are only sitting at 30%. But as this drifts farther to the west, again, sitting over the water, I'll see if it develops. Here's what one of the short-range models does. I'll play this thing out right through the next 24 hours and take it through Saturday midday. Notice it's starting to take on that shape, starting to consolidate its energy and developing somewhat by 24 hours from now. Let's go out another 24 hours, 48 hours from now to Sunday midday. Looking a little bit better by this point in time, deepening slightly perhaps. We're seeing a central pressure develop here, maybe a closed center of circulation. Maybe, again, the 48-hour chances here are only 10%, so they're very low. And this is only one model showing this. Let's go out a little bit farther here. It's starting to drift north and then starts to build off to the west slowly. But notice how slowly this does move. A lot of time over open, warm waters of the Northeast Gulf. Hasn't been tapped at all by any storms disrupting it or sucking any energy out. So you may see something develop here. We'll see. Named storm climatology, typically right around today, is the second named storm we find it. So we may be within that if we get our next named storm in the next couple days. It's usually around this time. It's not right on July 17th. This is an average over the last 30 years. Then by August 3rd or 3rd, typically in the 15th, you notice that the gaps in between days or storms gets smaller and smaller as we get closer to the peak of the season. Next up on the list, of course, we've been waiting for this Bertha to develop. Arthur was around for 12 hours. That was barely a storm, but it did bring big impacts with some flooding into the Gulf Coast states. But Bertha would be on deck next, and that possibly we may see in the Northeast Gulf. Again, not a guarantee. It's been 30 days now since Arthur developed on June the 17th, so we've had a gap now, stormless, of 30 days. We are getting somewhat closer to number 5 longest stretches without any named storms in the Atlantic. In 2016, that was 42. The longest was in 1999. We went from mid-June to mid-August with nothing. And then in 2022, which actually ended up being a pretty decent busy season, we went 60 days as well, from just before the 4th of July through the entire month of August, pretty much. Now, let's talk about July storms in general, just within the past 5 seasons. We go back to 2021, and it ranges between 1 and 2 named storms forming in the month of July. And then you look at the season totals here. 2021 with 21 named storms. 2023 had 20. 2022, which we had that big gap of 60 days, still ended up with 14 named storms, a relatively average season. 2024 at 18, and then last year we had one named storm in July. I think that was Chantal. And then 13 was our total last year. And of course, you saw the Colorado State University's update, the revision, down to 9 named storms now is the forecast for the entirety of the season. So we'll see. We may not even get a named storm this month. If that area of interest in the Northeast Gulf doesn't develop, there's really nothing else on the horizon. So we may go through the entire month with nothing. That'd be the first in 5 years. A lot of dust out there, a lot of stable air. That's one reason why our wave that came off the coast of Africa just failed to generate anything at all. Still a lot more dust coming off the continent of Africa, but it is starting to lift farther to the north of the Cabo Verde Islands for the most part, and we're going to start to see the main development region begin to open up for business. Plenty of warm water out there. Anomalies in the subtropics especially are extremely warm, but still plenty warm in the main development region, plenty warm in the Caribbean, and of course the Gulf. We're looking at water temperatures there that I'll show you in a second that are in the mid to upper 80s. So certainly plenty of heat and heat energy available here, and anomalously warm across the entire Gulf. And then you've got the Eastern Pacific that is just baking hot. And there's been seasons like in 2020 that the Atlantic looked exactly like this, and that led to the busiest season on record. East Pac's already at 5 named storms. We'll see how they end up. It's forecast to be a little bit more of an active season than normal. And you see the signal here of the El Nino that continues to strengthen. Back over to the Gulf. Sea surface temperatures at this time. You saw the amount above normal they are, but these are the actual readings here in the mid to upper 80s, close to 90 degrees, especially in the area that system will be sitting and festering over the next couple of days. So that's the latest on the Atlantic. We'll take a look at the Pacific coming up after a quick break. Welcome back to Hurricane Hub Live. Here's a look at the Eastern Pacific. Of course, we've got Elida, high-end tropical storm right now. And look at right behind it, we've got a train of systems here trying to develop. One right on its heels with a high odd, and then another one behind it, low chances of developing here over the next 7 days. And way out in the Western Pacific, or Central Pacific, I should say, south of Hawaii, a couple more clusters here heading into the Central Pacific Basin, and now unlikely to develop there. Chances of development here on these two systems, we've got one here 30% over the next 7 days, so low. But the one right in front of it, right behind Elida, 80% now has been tagged as Invest 97E. Invest investigative area, 97, a record number in E's of the Eastern Pacific Basin. And 90% chance here, next name on the list would be Fausto, being the sixth named storm of the season so far. Of course, we've had 5 right now tropical storms. Elida was forecast to become a hurricane. That has now been taken off the table. Here's how it looks on satellite imagery. No intensification from the last 24 hours, still holding stable at 65-mile-per-hour winds, higher-end tropical storm. But as it lifts off to the north and west, it's going to gradually be moving into a more stable environment, slightly cooler sea surface water, so the energy available will be less for it to intensify. So we're going to max out here, forecast right now to get up to 70-mile-per-hour winds, just a little bit below threshold for a Category 1 storm. So we'll hold it at 5 in the Eastern Pacific on our scorecard. Still one old storm, Arthur, a month ago out in the Atlantic Basin. We may see a 6th in the Eastern Pacific in the short term. All right, that's the latest in the Eastern Pacific. We'll be right back after a quick break. All right, welcome back to Hurricane Hub Live. We've got very special guests with us tonight. We've got Tina Weaver, who's Deputy Director of Long-Term Recovery with the American Red Cross, and Adrian Mines, who's the Executive Director of the Western North Carolina chapter. Good evening to you both. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Now let's talk about the American Red Cross's immediate response to Hurricane Helene coming up on almost 2 years ago. Can you describe what that was like? It must have been an immense operation.
Yeah, it was something that we have never experienced before as an organization, or like in our personal lives here in Western North Carolina. So on September 25th, we had our core leadership team arrive at our headquarters, which is located in Asheville, North Carolina. And we immediately found out that this was going to be a storm that we never have seen before, right? So as soon as the storm came through Asheville, North Carolina, we knew immediately, as the Red Cross organization, we had to respond and ensure that we had our mass care services covered, right? So what does that mean? We had to ensure that we had shelter staffing. We had to get transportation to the mega shelters that were standing up at the time. We had to collaborate with our partners, our non-government partners and government partners when it comes to feeding and really taking a look at the essential items that our community members needed at the time. So once we got that on the ground, We later were able to cover other shelters throughout Western North Carolina. We also supported different community care stations. So once we had clearer roads and had access to other hubs in Western North Carolina, especially in the rural areas, we had hubs where we provided food, clothing, blankets, cleanup kits, so brooms, gloves, sponges, water. We had shower trailers. We had laundry units. We had bathrooms, basically where people can just come and kind of have a sense of familiarity as far as having the necessary things they needed at that time.
Now, Western North Carolina is just such a huge geographical area. Do you have some sort of feel for how many people the American Red Cross helped during the ongoing recovery efforts there?
Yeah, so I think we supported over 50 shelters. We provided nearly about 23,000 overnight stays. We were able to deliver 450,000 hot meals, provided just under 970,000 individual snacks, and that doesn't include the 35,000 shelf-stable meals we served, especially during those early days. Again, with our volunteers and community partners, running mule trains, ATVs, helicopters. We provided over 36,000 cleanup kits, over 600,000 emergency supply items, and served over 127,000 households.
Just amazing work you all do. Now, Tina, I want to bring you in here. I've got a question for you. Coming up on 2 years now, in September, since Helene made landfall and moved up along the spine of the Appalachians, what does the recovery efforts look like now?
Yeah. So within these large disasters, the recovery efforts are really spawned when resources are allowed. So we were able to come into a position because of the incredible generosity of our donors, in which it had allowed us to stand up our operation in a 3-year post-disaster. So we're coming up on 2 years, and we do anticipate on being here another year beyond that. With our local chapters, we will be here much longer, but our long-term recovery operation is that 3-year stint. And inside of that, because of those resources were allowed, we've been able to distribute $54 million in awarded grants to over 67 partners. These are LTRGs, disaster case management groups, repairs and rebuilds, food distribution, you name it. Where the need is, we are looking to fill it, and we are continuing to do so. Another component of that is our impact has continued in a way of individual assistance. To date, we have distributed over $7 million, reaching over 1,600 individuals through our expanded recovery assistance program. This is all coupled in understanding that we've generated over 200 partners throughout this recovery to date, and understanding that there's still a lot more to do. We need to educate our communities so that we can be better prepared for the next disaster, and that education will span across floods, landslides, wildfires, what is really pertinent to our communities, in understanding that we have to remain relevant in a state of readiness.
Now, what does the transition look like, Tina, from the emergency assistance right at the onset of the disaster, the ongoing disaster, to long-term recovery for potentially years to come?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that emergency assistance is that response that Adrian shared those details around. And now there's a recovery is that we're engaging with the community in which they can build a sense of resilience, a sense of understanding how we can, again, be best prepared for that next disaster. When we look at these 200 plus partners that we've created over the past almost 2 years, these are the folks in organizations that were the boots on the ground alongside the Red Cross and independently from the Red Cross. But creating those strings of connectivity has allowed us to really spawn an ecosystem of support and understanding that this is going to take several more years.
Now, I want to pose this question to the both of you. With your experiences working with the emergency assistance and then the recovery, is there any stories that you can recall of like families you encountered or communities you engaged with that just resonates with you to this day?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could have an entire just conversation around this. Adrian shared the countless lives that we've had the gratitude of being able to serve alongside and reach. But one story in particular is Miss Laurel. And Miss Laurel is up in our high country part of Western North Carolina. Miss Laurel's story is one of so many, but a tree dropped on her house, destroying it. And this was just 10 minutes before she was standing right in the line of the tree where it dropped on her home. Miss Laurel had nothing to do. She had nowhere to go. But the kindness of our community was able to give her an RV in which she was able to reside in for a period of time. Not but a year and months later did her home get rebuilt. And we're actually so excited because we'll be doing a ribbon cutting at Miss Laurel's here in the next week. But just to understand the gravity of it's taken over a year and a half for her to be displaced from her home, and understanding that this is not something that one organization was able to bring back to Miss Laurel, but it was a village of organizations that we were able to work alongside.
You know, I would just share just being on the ground and being in the shelters and seeing how resilient people can be. You know, you always hear how disasters bring out the best of individuals, right? You really get a sense of what true mutual aid looks like. And it was just amazing to see that in person, seeing people come together in shelters who they never met before, right? But how can I help you? Hey, do you need a blanket? Hey, do you need a snack? I got some extra snacks over here. Especially when it comes to the kids, right? I have two young girls, so being in those shelters, seeing families with the young children, and just really witnessing the resilience, see how the parents were able to stay strong and positive, ensuring that their children felt comfortable. And that allowed the children to, one, be themselves, and then also find ways how they can help out throughout the shelter. If it was just cleaning up, it was just throwing things out, or just asking questions, questions around, how can we better be prepared for the next storm? And it's sharing that education right away. So really for me, it's just seeing and witnessing, how strong we can be when we all come together.
Break, we hear from North Carolina Governor Josh Stein about after his visit with a Hurricane Helene survivor who received a newly rebuilt home this week. On Wednesday, North Carolina Governor Josh Stein visited a Hurricane Helene survivor as she moved into her newly rebuilt home. The visit comes after Stein signed the state's first full budget in more than 2 years. The budget includes more than $700 million for Hurricane Helene recovery. It's the third Hurricane Helene recovery package approved since Stein took office in January of 2025.
The emotion is joy because it was a bleak time. She said it was a traumatic time. She's from the coast. She's been through storms. Never been through a storm like Hurricane Helene, and to have the trees swaying and falling down all around you, it's absolutely terrifying. Her house was damaged, the wind, the water destroyed her home. So to have a situation that's so bleak and so hard, so emotional, and then to be able to walk into a home and be able to start over, it gives you hope. Her house was destroyed during the storm. Insurance company was not prepared to pay the repairs that were necessary. And when the Renew NC team, they're part of the Department of Commerce, came over here, they realized that it was a better deal to build a new house than to try to repair. The damage was so extensive. We stood up our housing program, this housing revitalization program, faster than any other state impacted by Helene, faster than any state impacted by a storm over a major storm in more than a decade.
All right, time for tropical trivia. Last night's question was, which satellite first allowed meteorologists to routinely monitor hurricanes from space? The answer is TIROS-1, a NASA satellite way back when, allowing us to view hurricanes in real time all the time. All right, that's it for Hurricane Hub Live tonight on your Friday. A reminder to scan the QR code to download the 13 News Now Hurricane Guide. It is information on supplies you should have on hand, emergency numbers you might need, and a whole lot more. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.